Hey guys, how are you all doing? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Sasuke gave his Sharingan to Naruto before he dies, part 1. So before we start, go check out the author of this fanfic, Warden author, link is in the description, also subscribe if you enjoy the video, let's start the story. Ifs of friendship, you bastard. Screamed Naruto as he knelt over Sasuke's limp body. The figure in the mirror said nothing as Naruto swore his death, and more. Ominous red chakra began to flow through Naruto's body. The boy Haku felt a sudden increase of chakra and flung 3 of his needles at the young boy. The 3 needles found a berth deep in Naruto's right eye. Naruto screamed out in pain, clutching at his eye. Fighting through his pain, Naruto wrenched the needles free. Blood flowed from his eye and down his face. Haku was a bit taken aback the boy could still move. He was about to attack again when he felt a great surge of chakra. He gasped and halted his attack. Zabuza was in trouble. He felt the fight, allowing his crystal ice mirrors to collapse. Completely disregarding his fleeing, Naruto rushed to Sasuke's side. "Sasuke," he said. "Sasuke." The young Uchiha's eyes slowly opened, his newly discovered sharing and shining bright. "Naruto," he said, "I'm going to die, aren't I?" Naruto shook his head violently. "No, you can't die," he said, pulling Sasuke's head into his arms and lap. "You have to restore the Uchiha clan, you have to kill that guy, I'll help, we can do it together, just don't die." "It's too late, Naruto," stammered Sasuke. "I can't feel my body, I can hardly breathe," he hit my lung. "It's full of blood." "Naruto, I'm so sorry. I was so cruel. I was threatened by your quick growth, but some good came of that. We made each other better. We were good for one another. But now I must leave you. I'm sorry I can't help you anymore. We could have been great friends." Sasuke's Sharingan eyes came into focus, focusing on Naruto's closed right eye. "He hit your eye." Naruto nodded. "I don't think I'm going to be able to use it ever again, Sasuke," he said. A small smile played on Sasuke's lips. "Maybe I can help you one last time," he said here. He slowly placed 2 fingers over his right Sharingan, the completed eye. Then with his left hand he made a C over Naruto's right eye, opening the wounded eye and touching the widest eye with his thumb and index finger. "Naruto, don't give up on your dream to become Hokage. Take my Sharingan, let my eyes show you the path you must take. Naruto, we'll always be together. We'll always be friends. Transfer jutsu." Naruto heard himself scream as pain lanced through his eye again. It felt like he had the needle in it again, only this time they'd been heated cherry red. The pain was unbearable, and as soon as it began to lessen, Naruto collapsed next to his dead friend. The chakra pulsed in his hand, lightning blade. Named as such when he used it to cut a bolt of lightning in half. He glared at Zabuza, who was in the jaws of several of his ninja hounds. "I won't let you kill Tazuna, he's a good man with a good purpose," Kakashi said. "Your purpose, however, ends here." That said, he rushed at Zabuza, the Chidori sparkling in his hand. The flash caused by the attack hitting flesh blinded him for a slight moment before quickly vanishing. His eyes widened as he saw his victim. It was not Zabuza, but instead the boy Haku. Kakashi's eyes turned to where the boy had been. His 2 male students lay lifeless. He wrenched his hand free of the corpse and leapt away. Zabuza was about to attack again when he heard a small chuckle. Kakashi looked to his left as Zabuza looked to his right. There stood Geto. Surrounded by 50 men. "Well, this isn't going as planned," said Geto. "The idea was for you 2 to kill each other off. But you're both alive. Sorry, but I can't have you on the peril anymore, you're too expensive." Zabuza let out a small chuckle. "Well, Kakashi," he said, "our battle seems to be over, now that I'm no longer in Geto's employment we have no quarrel." "Yes, you're right," said Kakashi. "However, the hounds of yours have rendered my arms completely useless," he said, "and I have to make Geto pay for betraying me. Mind if I borrow your kunai?" he asked as he tore his mask off with his teeth. "Sure," said Kakashi and tossed one of his kunai to the demon of the mist. Zabuza caught the knife in his mouth and took off racing after Geto, his limp arms trailing behind him. Geto let out a small gasp before turning and fleeing into the ranks of his men. Zabuza followed him, cutting his way through them until he reached the other end. There he drove the kunai into Geto's chest, yanked it out and slashed him across the throat. Geto's body flew off the bridge and into the sea. As soon as Geto's body hit the water, a countless number of blades sunk into Zabuza's back. Zabuza turned and stumbled out of the mob where he fell next to Haku. And died staring the boy he loved like a son in the eyes. Kakashi turned to the mob and watched as they came to terms with what had just happened. He knew that as soon as they realized they just lost their meal, they would resort to more drastic measures, like raiding the village. They started grumbling amongst themselves and started to advance on Kakashi. Just as they came close, an arrow sunk into the bridge. Kakashi turned and saw that the entire village had come to defend their home, and leading the pack was Irani. Kakashi smiled under his mask. "Naruto. You've done it. He turned and faced the mobsters with the villager at his back. Seeing that they were outnumbered, the thugs quickly turned and left. Letting out a sigh, Kakashi pulled his headband over his left eye. It was over. He didn't know how right he was. Sasuke. Naruto. Came Sakura's distraught voice echoing in his ears. Kakashi turned and ran to his students. Sakura said as she turned and latched onto the front of his vest. Kakashi checked Sasuke first. Needles covered his body including some in his left lung. He checks for a pulse. The last of the Uchiha was dead. Then he turned to Naruto. He was covered in needles as well, but when he checked for a pulse, he found one. It was faint but definitely there. It was then he noticed Naruto's right eye had blood coming from it. Fearing the worst, Kakashi slowly opened the boy's right eyelid. What he found caused his breath to catch in his throat. There, in the right eye of Naruto Uzumaki was a level 2 Sharingan. A friend forever. He'd read the inscription thousands of times. With his left eye. His right hand had been wrapped in bandages since the moment he'd woke up. Sasuke had given him the Sharingan, but he had yet to see it. Kakashi insisted he kept it wrapped, and a secret, as far as the village knew, Naruto had been severely wounded in the battle against the rogue ninjas Abusa while defending Sasuke after he went down. The only people who knew the real truth were Sakura and Kakashi, not even the third knew. This of course brought more grief to Naruto, as many villagers saw the death of the last of the Uchiha his fault. He hadn't expected this, he had been getting treated better since making Genin. But now he was back to square one. Of course Iruka-sensei and Kakashi-sensei supported him as much as they could, and the old man at Ichiraku's helped a bit. Even old man Hokage visited him from time to time and even came to the headstone once and hugged him as he cried over his inability to protect a comrade. However, his biggest supporter, surprisingly enough, was Sakura. Yes, she had been upset and cried for a couple days. But she was nothing compared to Naruto. Naruto had been with Sasuke almost every day they were in the land of waves training together, and even though neither of them had really wanted it, the root for a strong friendship had been planted. However, just as it seemed like that tree had begun to grow, that root was ripped out. Sakura visits Naruto every day. She'd spend hours searching the village until she found him. Sometimes he would be in his apartment, which she now had a key for despite his protest. Sometimes he'd been on top of the Hokage monument on the fourth's head, but most commonly he was here, at Sasuke's grave. Before Sasuke's death, Sakura had never ever seen Naruto cry. After his death, Naruto cried 2 or 3 times a week. After all, Naruto stood and walked back toward the village. His hands tucked in the pockets of his black pants. After the funeral, Naruto had gotten rid of everything that reminded him of Sasuke. That included his orange jumpsuit, which Sasuke used to tease him about from time to time. Now he wore a simple pair of black pants, black thong-style sandals, and a deep blood-red t-shirt. He wasn't wearing his headband, he hadn't worn it since he got back. He hadn't been on a mission. He rubbed the bandage covering the right side of his face, thinking back to when he'd woken up. Flashback. Naruto hurt all over as he slowly opened his eyes. Well, one eye really, his other eye was covered in thick bandages. He slowly sat up and reached for the bandages, intent on taking them off. "Don't," came a familiar baritone voice. He turned to see Kakashi sitting in a chair next to him reading his book. "Your eye hasn't completely taken root and won't for the next 2 weeks. Leave the bandages on." Naruto let out a sad sigh and dropped his hands in his lap. A sad look on his face. "Sasuke is dead," said Kakashi. "I know," said Naruto flatly, tears sprung up in his left eye. "I couldn't save Kakashi-sensei, why couldn't I? I tried and tried. But everything I do I screw up. The graduation exam, your test that we only passed because of Sasuke, those stupid D ranks where I kept letting my pride get in the way, and now, I've let Sasuke die." He sucked his knees to his chest, put his arms on his knees, and cried. He couldn't remember how long it was for, but he knew it was a while. The whole time Kakashi stayed by him, knowing exactly what he was going through. Pride was the bane of many ninja, Kakashi included. Because of his foolishness and pride, a beat up. "Naruto," said Kakashi. Naruto looked up at him, his eyes red and puffy. "Sasuke's death wasn't your fault. I know you, I've trained you for 6 months. I know you did anything and everything you could to save him. It hurts, believe me when I tell you I know what you're going through. But crying about it won't bring him back. It's okay to feel sad about losing him, but crying won't help." Kakashi said all this while looking at the far wall, and finally he turned to Naruto. "However, on the other hand, don't bear this burden alone either. Sakura and you are going through the same thing. Talk to her, talk to me, talk to all your friends back at the village. Don't just endure the weight of a lost comrade alone, it'll weigh you down, and you let it take over your entire life. Naruto, Sasuke has given a great gift, don't let it go to waste by blaming yourself. It'll tear you up. We'll help each other," Kakashi finished with a small one-eye smile. Naruto's face fell back to look at his hands in his lap. The door opened, causing Naruto to look up and see the last person in the world he'd wanted to face, Sakura Haruno. He'd expected her to start yelling and screaming and insulting him and making him feel terrible. However, as soon as she saw the broken and defeated look in his eyes, she crumbled. "Oh Naruto," she whispered as she came to his bedside and knelt down on the floor and wrapped her arms around his neck. "You did your best, I know you did." "I'm so sorry Sakura," Naruto choked out. "I'm so sorry." He cried into her shoulder as she gently stroked his back and whispered that it was going to be okay. Tears sprinkled at the edge of her eyes, but she forced them back. She'd cried over Sasuke's body for 3 hours, now she needed to be strong for Naruto. The 3 days Naruto had been out had given her a lot of time to think. She hadn't been in love with Sasuke, she'd been in love with the idea of loving Sasuke. But when you boiled it all down, it was just a childhood crush. Sasuke was her friend first, and now he is gone. But she'd watched at a distance as Sasuke and Naruto got closer and closer each day, despite how much they'd resisted. The teamwork they'd shown in their efforts to free Kakashi from Zabuza's water prison was a beacon of that friendship. And now, just as they both were finding their first true friend, Sasuke had been killed and it broke Naruto. Sakura refused to be weak right now, there would be time for that later. Right now Naruto needed what little strength she had to offer. Naruto struggled to get his sobs under control with staggered ragged gasps. "SHH, SHH, SHH," Sakura soothed, trying to help him calm down. "It's alright Naruto," she rocked him side to side as if he were a 3-year-old. Naruto finally got himself under control and went slack in Sakura's arms. She pulled back a little to look straight into his eyes. There was pain there but also gratitude. She had been there for him, not yelled at him when he needed her most. "Thank you Sakura," he rasped. She gave him a soft smile and hugged him one more time before standing up and leaving the room. Kakashi, who'd watched Sakura grieve over Sasuke's body for 3 days, let a small smile grace his features. They had come together when they needed each other most. "Naruto, stay in bed today, and if you're strong enough tomorrow, we'll send word for an escort back." Naruto nodded his head, Kakashi squeezed his shoulder and left the room. Naruto laid back down and let sleep take him. Then flashback. When Naruto came out of his thoughts, he found himself on top of the Hokage monument. He pondered to himself just how long he'd been up here. The sun was going down now, but there was no telling how long he'd wandered aimlessly through the village until coming here. Deciding he'd stay a while and try to settle down, Naruto sat on the fourth's head and drew his knees to his chest. Resting his chin on his knees, he gazed out across the village. It had changed since Sasuke's death. The villagers were downcast, disheartened. The greatest of their clan was now forever gone, and with them, the Sharingan. He and Kakashi were the only one who still had it. "I thought I might find you up here," came a familiar feminine voice. Naruto turned to see Sakura walking towards him. She wasn't dressed in her usual pink dress, instead she wore a white blouse with black pants and her sandals. Her long pink hair was drawn up in a high ponytail and she wore a kind smile on her face, one Naruto had been seeing more and more every day. "Hey Sakura," he said, turning back to face the village. Sakura's smile fell a bit. He'd been like this since they got back from the land of waves. She couldn't really blame him, but she kind of missed the old Naruto, the Naruto who yelled and made outrageous promises, the Naruto who wouldn't take being outdone by anyone, the Naruto whose face would light up when she walked into view. Now he just acknowledged her presence and went back to brooding. She slowly walked to his side and sat on her heels, wrapping her arms around her knees. "How long have you been up here?" she asked him. He shrugged. "I dunno," he mumbled, not looking away from the village. Sakura's smile fell a bit more. It fell to a full-blown frown when his stomach growled, and he didn't do a thing about it. Anyone who knew him would have expected him to jump up and declare he was going to the Ichiraku's for some ramen. Now he just stared out into space, his stomach rumbling. "Alright," said Sakura, standing back up, "let's get something to eat." "My treat." Naruto shrugged again and let Sakura drag him to his feet. He followed her down the mountain, his hand tucked in his pockets. They slowly made their way to the ramen stand run by old man Ichiraku and AM. She sat him down at his favorite stool before sitting down next to him. "Well, if it isn't Naruto and Sakura," said the old man. "Hey guys," said AM. "Hey," said Sakura, "one plain ramen and one miso ramen with pork." She'd been here enough with Naruto to know what he would want. Naruto had his arms crossed on the counter and his chin resting on his arms. Sakura frowned at him before turning to AM, who was leaning across the counter. "He's still down, huh?" she whispered, looking at Naruto's sulking form. "Yeah, he just can't forgive himself for Sasuke's death," Sakura whispered. "And to make things worse, 90% of the village blames him too. I was there too, but they didn't blame me, so was Kakashi-sensei, and they didn't blame him. They blame Naruto solely because of what he is, and it's not fair." Sakura could feel tears threatening and was only able to fight them off because the food was ready and placed in front of them. Naruto simply picked up a pair of chopsticks and started to eat. Sakura watched him emotionlessly slurp down his noodles. Oh Naruto, she thought before turning to her own ramen and slowly started eating her own ramen. They ate in silence, and as soon as he was done Naruto stood up, tossed a few bills on the table, and left. Sakura picked them up and put them in her back pocket with the intention of returning it to him later. Then she quickly finished her own ramen and reached her wallet. Tucci shook his head. It's in the house of Sakura, he said, you look after him, he needs you. Sakura smiled and nodded her head. Then she jumped down and ran after Naruto. When she caught up with him she laced an arm though his, an act that would have caused the boy to get very uncomfortable, now he didn't even look at her. Trying to find a good conversation topic, Sakura looked up at the sky. It was late, the moon was high in the sky, and the stars were out. Hey, she said I'll walk you home, the slightest nod of his head was her only answer. She tightened her grip on his arm and started leading him towards his apartment. Naruto didn't say anything for a long time. He was staring at the sky for a long time. She couldn't read his face, she used to be able to read him like a book. The new Naruto was so withdrawn and she didn't like it. Sakura, I'm alright, he said. They were at his apartment and she knew he was dismissing her. But she wasn't leaving him to brood, not this time. No you're not Naruto, she said without a moment's hesitation. You sulk all the time, you let other people's words affect you like you never have before. Naruto you've given up on your never give up and always keep your word, no matter what you've lost sight of that. Naruto, that's okay, we all saw things, but it's time you found it again. He stepped into his apartment in an attempt to escape her, but she stopped the door and pursued him. She found him standing in his living room, shoulders shaking, he was crying. I couldn't save him, Sakura, it's my fault he's dead. He said I should have done more, I just couldn't save him. He dropped to his knees burying his face in his hands. Sakura raced to his side, taking him in her arms. It's not your fault Naruto, she soothed. It's not, Haku killed him, not you. Oh Naruto, Sasuke knew what being a ninja meant, he took that mission, he fought because he had a goal. Naruto he wouldn't want you to beat yourself up over this, as hard and cold as Sasuke wasn't he wouldn't want you to blame yourself. By this point Naruto had his arms around Sakura hugging her to him like she was his lifeline, the only thing anchoring him to the ground. Sakura pulled back and took his face in both her hands so she could look him right in the eye. Naruto, let him go, she said put Sasuke to rest, honor him by fulfilling your dream, become Hokage. Naruto's crying slowly reduced to sniffles, then subsided altogether. Here, let's get you to bed, she helped him up and led him to his bedroom. Once they got there she sat him down on the bed and stood up. You get changed, I'm going to get you something to drink, she turned and left headed for his small kitchen and went through his cupboards looking for a glass. Once she found one she filled it with water from the tap and carefully carried it back to his room. She found Naruto laying on his bed in his boxers. Averting her eyes, Sakura pulled the covers over his body and got him to sit up and helped him drink half a glass and set the rest down on his bedside table. Get some sleep, Naruto, she said, I'll see you in the morning. Naruto sagged back down under the covers and rolled onto his side. Good night Sakura, he said, a hint of the old Naruto in his voice. Sakura could help but smile. Good night Naruto, she replied before leaving his room. Out in his front room Sakura located the clock, it read nearly midnight, she lived clear across the village, by the time she got back it would be 1 o'clock if not later. She stared at his couch for a minute before finally giving in to her body's needs and collapsing into its welcoming embrace. Sleep took her quickly. Naruto woke the next morning with a raw throat and a sore face. He'd cried a lot last night and knew that without Sakura's help things could have gone very wrong. He climbed out of bed and located his pants after pulling them on. Naruto downed the rest of the water Sakura had left on his bedside table last night and left the room. He walked into the front room to find Sakura asleep on his couch. He smiled a small smile as he remembered her words from the night before. She'd saved him in ways she would never realize. He turned to look at the clock to find that it was 11 in the morning, time for her to get up. Cautiously he knelt down and shook her shoulder. Sakura, it's time to get up, he said softly, trying not to startle her. After a few more shakes, her beautiful green eyes fluttered open. She stared at him for a minute before flushing and averting her gaze. Confused, Naruto looked down and saw that he was naked from the waist up. He mumbled an apology before rushing back to his bedroom and pulling on his shirt. He walked back into his front room rubbing the back of his head. Sakura was still on the couch but now sitting up smiling fondly at him. Hey thanks for last night, he said. She shook her head. There's no need to thank Naruto, she replied, you needed help and I was more than happy to give it. He nodded in thanks and turned towards the kitchen. Are you hungry? He asked. Yes I am. She said laughing. Well let's see if we can't find you something for you to eat, he said as he opened his small fridge. After some rummaging around he produced a tray of bacon. care for some pancakes and bacon?" he asked. Sakura giggled. "You can cook?" she asked. He shrugged. "Kinda," he replied, pulling out the rest of the things he would need. "I just assumed all you knew how to cook was instant ramen," she said, getting up off the couch and wrapping the heavy blanket she'd used the night before around her to shield her from the crisp winter morning chill. A ghost of a smile formed on Naruto's face before he shook his head. "No," he replied, "I dabble at regular cooking too, I'm still not very good though." He began to mix the batter as he turned on the stove to cook the bacon. Sakura moved up beside him and took the bowl of batter away from him. "Here, let me help," she said, and began mixing as Naruto placed 4 strips of bacon in the pan. They worked in comfortable silence for a while before Sakura finally broke it with an unexpected question. "Naruto, why do you keep the Sharingan covered?" she asked, not looking up from the pan she was making pancakes in next to him. He took out the last strip of bacon and set it on the plate before turning off the burner and leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. "To protect myself," was his answer. "What do you mean?" she asked, looking at him this time. "What would people say if they saw I had Sasuke's Sharingan? What would they do?" She didn't need him to elaborate to know exactly what he meant. If people knew Naruto had the Sharingan, they would assume he'd taken it from Sasuke and not received it as a gift. They would call for punishment. It was better this way. Leaving the topic alone for now, Sakura finished the pancakes and took the platter to the table. Naruto joined her with the bacon and they ate in companionable silence. After finishing their meal, Naruto cleared the table and set them in the sink. "I should probably get you home," he said. Sakura stopped dead. Home? She hadn't even considered how her parents would be reacting to waking up and finding out she never came back. And even worse, she'd stayed with Naruto, whom her father was less than fond of. She paled. "Yeah, good idea," she said quickly, going to put on her sandals. Naruto followed, stepping into his own sandals. They left his house and started to navigate through the busy streets of Leaf Village. It was a busy time of year, the winter festival was coming, street vendors were showing up more and more every day to get ready for the start that weekend. Without really thinking about it, Sakura wrapped her arms around Naruto's right arm to keep from getting separated. Naruto eyed her for a minute before letting the ghost smile return to his face. Sakura gave him a small smile in return, but couldn't find it in her heart to smile a full smile. It was disheartening to see that Naruto could no longer smile. He used to be so full of life, now he was broken, but Sakura could see that he was healing. The way he'd acted this morning showed that. He was more his old self, and it pleased Sakura. She knew he'd never be the exact same ever again, that was asking too much, but maybe with help he could be more outgoing again. They got to Sakura's house after about an hour of dodging through traffic. Sakura braced herself as she opened the door, this was going to be bad. Her fears were instantly confirmed when she saw her father standing in the doorway, arms crossed over his chest, anger in his eyes. "There you are," he seethed. "Hi Daddy," she squeaked. "What in the world are you still doing staying out all night?" he asked. It was then that he realized for the first time just who she was with. "You," he yelled, advancing on Naruto. Acting instinctively, Naruto pulled Sakura behind him, in doing so he lost his opportunity to defend himself. The blow caught him square on the jaw. He stumbled backwards down the steps of Sakura's house, nearly knocking Sakura over in the process. He regained his balance and stood in front of Sakura looking at her father. Though their eyes met, there was no challenge in Naruto's eye. No defiance. Nothing, just an empty pool of cold ice. It was unsettling really. He could have dealt with defiance, or rage, or sorrow, but this empty look that he was getting from the boy made his blood run cold. He'd seen it before, in men who had nothing left to live for. This boy had seen something that broke him. "Sakura, get inside," said Mr. Haruno. Sakura's face lit up with panic, she couldn't just abandon Naruto, but she could disobey her father either. So with a squeeze on his bicep, Sakura stepped around Naruto and up the stairs to her father. "Goodbye Sakura," came Naruto's even voice, void of all emotion. Sakura's face fell, she'd worked for almost 2 days to get Naruto to open up, only to have her father ruin that in less than a minute. "Goodbye Naruto," she replied and stepped into the house. Mr. Haruno glared at Naruto a bit longer before going inside the house. Naruto was left standing at the bottom of the stairs alone. After staring at the door for a minute, he turned, stuck his hands in his pockets and left headed for Sasuke's grave. Sakura rounded on her father the moment he closed the door. "Would you do that?" she demanded, furious with him. "He had you out all night, Sakura," yelled her father. "You may be a ninja, but you are still my daughter and I will not have you out all night with trash like him." He pointed towards the door. "Trash. Trash," screamed Sakura. "Naruto is a lot of things, Daddy, but he is not trash. He is the most caring, self-sacrificing, dependable person I know. He needed me last night and I was more than happy to be there. I know you saw the look in his eyes. He's dead inside." He watched his best friend killed in cold blood right in front of him. I spent all night and this morning trying to get him to open up, and just when I started making a little bit of progress, you ruined it. Tears were now flowing freely down her face. Her father was rooted to the spot, completely speechless. Once he didn't respond, Sakura turned and fled up the stairs and into her room, where she collapsed on her bed and cried. Downstairs, Takashi Haruno stared after his daughter, feeling like the scum of the earth. Movement caught his attention and he turned to see his wife Aki, giving him a look of complete disappointment. "How much did you hear?" he asked. "I heard the whole thing, Takashi," she said. "You've completely destroyed our daughter. That boy is all she has right now, and I could tell just from the small glimpse of him I caught out the window. He isn't doing well." The disappointment dripped off her words. "He needs her." Takashi looked at the floor, hating himself. "Hey Sasuke," Naruto said as he sat down. "I can't stay long, I just wanted to say hey." "Back again, Naruto?" came a male's voice. Naruto turned to see Kakashi standing behind him. "Oh hey Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto, turning back to Sasuke. "Naruto," standing up, Kakashi's voice told him he better do it. So Naruto dragged himself to his feet, ready to get yelled at again. His jaw still ached where Sakura's father had hit him. "What is Kakashi-sensei?" he asked, not really caring. Kakashi's answer caught him off guard. "Naruto, it's time I taught you to use Sharingan." "Damn it," he thought to himself as he raced through the trees. "I am so late, they're gonna kill me." He sped up, trying to reach his destination on time. That was until he missed a step and went crashing down to the forest floor. Nursing a sore shoulder, he dragged himself to his feet and started to dejectedly walk, no longer caring he was going to be late anyway. When he finally reached where he was going, a small clearing with a black stone on the eastern edge, he took in his surroundings. There were two people in the clearing, a girl who looked close to his age, with a great figure and the most amazing pink hair he'd ever seen. She wore a hot pink t-shirt and a black silk pants, on her feet were shinobi sandals, and her headband was tied onto the top of her head to hold her hair back. The second person was a boy, about his age, maybe a year older. He had long shaggy and spiky blonde hair. He wore a blood red t-shirt and black pants, flat thong style sandals were on his feet. On his head was a blue headband and the right side of his face was covered in heavy bandages. The girl turned to him, her face angry. Later again, Kakashi cut herself off. "Hey, you're not Kakashi-sensei. Who are you? Is this Team 7? He asked, a bit shy. "Yes," the girl replied. "Why do you ask?" He hesitated, however, before he could give his reason, a voice behind him cut him off. "So, you must be Haru." Haru turned to see a tall man with silver hair and his headband over one eye standing behind him with his hand tucked into his pockets. "Haru?" the girl asked. "Yes, Sakura, Naruto, this is Harumuri," said the silver-haired man. The blonde looked at him with suspicion. "He's the newest member of Team 7. The blonde's face contorted, but he stayed silent. The pinkette, however, did not. "But Kakashi-sensei, I'm not sure if," she cut herself off again, glancing nervously at the blonde. Haru glanced at him again and saw the boy had his face down, his blonde hair masking his eyes. Harry didn't have to be a mind reader to see that the boy was against this idea. He just hoped he would blame him, it wasn't his choice. He'd been placed on this team because on his last team he was fighting more and more with a teammate, and it had already jeopardized several of their missions. So to end the bickering, the squad had been broken up and Haru had been assigned to this team. He knew some of the history behind the infamous Team 7. Sasuke Uchiha had once been a member of this team, but he died in the Land of Waves on a mission that had escalated far beyond the abilities of any genin. He had been fighting the enemy on his own, while the Uzumaki boy stood by and watched. It was because of the blonde-haired boy that the last of the Uchiha was dead. Balling his fists, Haru glared at the boy, but try as he might, he couldn't get the young man to raise his gaze. "Alright," said Kakashi. "Let's get on with today's training, it'll be relatively short. Combat training, you'll fight each other for 3 hours, do not hold back, if you do you will get injured because chances are, because your opponent won't." Haru stared at the man. They were expected to fight each other. He glanced at his new teammates. Neither of them seemed fazed in the least. "However, since Haru is new, I'm adding a second rule. For 1 hour 2 of you will pair up and attack the other. This will also help work on cooperative fighting and teamwork. First will be Haru and Sakura against Naruto. The blonde finally looked up. "Don't use it, that's the only restriction you're not ready for, all others are allowed though." Naruto nodded. "Got it, Kakashi-sensei," he said. Haru noticed Sakura almost seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Okay then, on the whistle," said Kakashi. Sakura walked over to stand next to Haru and Naruto stood across from them. "What are his weaknesses?" asked Haru. Sakura stared at Naruto for a second before turning to reply. "Injutsu," she said. Well, there went that plan. Haru didn't know any. He would just have to figure something out. A shrill whistle sounded across the clearing. Naruto leapt straight for them, a kunai in hand. Haru noticed he was coming right for him, he froze, and he was hardly any good at close combat. He closed his eyes waiting for the cold bite of steel. That was until a ringing met his ears. He opens his eyes and sees Sakura standing in front of him blocking Naruto's kunai with her own. To look over his shoulder at him. "Don't just stand there, help me," she said. Haru nodded and drew his own kunai. Naruto leapt away from them and threw his knife, which Sakura deflected easily. Naruto landed about 15 feet away and started flashing through hand signs. "Fire style. Fireball," he yelled and brought his hand to his mouth, placed 2 fingers on the corner of his lips and exhaled. A massive ball of flame launched at them. Sakura and Haru leapt out of the way in opposite directions. Then Naruto crossed his fingers. Shadow Clone 19 clones phased into existence. Then they charged. Kakashi sat in a nearby tree watching the 3 genin fight. He could help but smile. In the 2 months Naruto had been training to use Sharingan, he had come a rather long way. Even though he was more withdrawn and quieter since Sasuke's death, there were some things about Naruto that Kakashi believed would never change. Like his unbelievable work ethic, Kakashi had to physically force Naruto to stop training 3 times or risk total chakra depletion. It was true that Naruto had a substantial amount more chakra than Kakashi, but the hours Naruto put into his training would put a normal person in a near coma state. About a month into the training, Kakashi stumbled across another change in Naruto. When Sasuke had given Naruto Sharingan, he'd also inadvertently transferred his own prowess with fire to Naruto. Naruto could now use fire so powerful it rivaled Sasuke's, hell even Kakashi's. Kakashi watched as Naruto attacked with his shadow clones, like he said, some things never change. Like Naruto's ability to create a ridiculous amount of shadow clones. The 3 battles had battled for 45 minutes now, and so far, Sakura and Haru had been able to fight Naruto to a standstill. Though Naruto had improved in leaps and bounds, Sakura had improved quite a bit too. She said that her total inability to do anything against Zabuza and Haku had opened her eyes and she had committed herself to training, even joining Naruto and Kakashi at times when they were training with Sharingan. The buzzer went off. "Alright, switch," yelled Kakashi, Naruto, and Haku versus Sakura. The transition was flawless. Naruto and Sakura just leapt into the air and switched places. They resumed battling. Sakura struggled a bit more than Naruto did. But that was to be expected, Naruto was the strongest genin on their team. Haru on the other hand, well, flashback. "You wanted to see me, Lord Hokage?" asked Kakashi, stepping through the door to the Hokage's office. "Ah yes, Kakashi," said the Hokage, "I have news for you." "What is it?" asked Kakashi, curious. "I've found a replacement for Sasuke on your team," he replied. Kakashi had been afraid of this. "Lord Hokage," I didn't start Kakashi, but the village leader cut him off. "You don't think Naruto is ready?" he said to Kakashi. "We need Team 7 up to full strength again, we need you to start taking missions again. Here is a dossier on your new student." Kakashi took the papers from the Hokage and began to flip through them. "You can see why I put him on your team." "Yes, this boy," said Kakashi, "is terrible. Only 5 successfully completed missions, all D rank, he has almost no fighting skill, his scores were worse than Naruto's." "Exactly," said the Hokage, "he's quite behind, and since you have 2 of the most advanced genin of their generation, I was hoping they could rub off on him." Kakashi saw his reasoning, but still wasn't sure it was a good idea. "Lord Hokage, Naruto won't like this, he doesn't want to replace Sasuke," said Kakashi. "I'm afraid he would just push Haru away." But the Hokage was having none of it. "Kakashi, I've made my decision," he said. Kakashi bowed. "Yes, Lord Hokage," he replied and turned to, "We'll have a training exercise tomorrow, please have him meet us at training field 7. The Hokage nodded. Then flashback. Kakashi had been right, Naruto wasn't working with Haru at all, he was fighting Sakura on his own. Haru was being left behind. Naruto threw 3 more kunai at Sakura as he flipped over a branch and launched himself at Sakura. Haru stood on the ground watching, not believing what he was seeing. Naruto was good, really good. Naruto dropped to the ground in a crouch, his left knee bent, his right leg straightened out to the side. He looked over his shoulder. "Are you planning on helping anytime soon?" he asked Haru. Haru hesitated. Naruto scoffed and raced at Sakura. "Would I even ask?" He leapt at Sakura, aiming a kick at her head. She ducked it. He landed behind her. She turned and swung at his head. Naruto leapt backwards, landing on his shoulders, and kicked right back to his feet. He threw a roundhouse at her head which she spun under, drawing a kunai. Naruto drew his own kunai and parried the incoming attack. They stood locked like that for a couple seconds before a buzzer sounded. "Alright, last switch," said Kakashi from his tree. Sakura and Naruto versus Haru. Naruto heard Haru gasp. Sakura and Naruto stood side by side before looking at each other and nodding. Naruto threw 3 shuriken. Haru gasped again and leapt to his left. Naruto and Sakura sprinted at him, Naruto leading. Naruto dropped to one knee and delivered a hard straight right to Haru's stomach. Haru doubled over and stumbled backward several feet. Sakura jumped onto Naruto's shoulder and leapt into the air. She caught Haru in the side of the face with a hard kick. Haru flew another several feet to his right and landed hard on his back. Naruto jumped into the air, spun a couple times and fell straight at Haru, his right leg bent. Haru rolled to his right and avoided the deadly knee which landed only a couple inches from his face. He leapt to his feet. Sakura ran at Naruto, who was still in his crouch, placing a hand on each of his shoulders. She cartwheeled over him and caught Haru with each of her feet. Naruto jumped to his feet and rolled across Sakura's back. He brought a right punch down on the top of Haru's head, snapping the young boy's head down, then delivered a left uppercut directly into his face. Haru hit his back hard, his breath rushing from his lungs. He laid on his back looking up at Naruto and Sakura who were standing over him. Neither breathing is really hard. That's enough, came Kakashi's voice. We're done for the day, meet at the bridge tomorrow, we have a mission. Naruto didn't say anything as he turned and started to leave. Sakura gave Haru a glance before turning and leaving as well. It didn't go unnoticed by either Kakashi or Haru, that neither offered to help him up. Kakashi sighed. Naruto left the training field with his hands in his pockets. He didn't even seem to notice Sakura walking with him, both her arms wrapped around his upper right arm. He just stared at the ground, putting one foot in front of the other. Sakura frowned. Since that day 2 months ago Naruto had fallen even deeper into himself. The only time he seemed to open up was when he was training. Whether it was with her or Kakashi, it seemed to help, but the second it ended, he would shut them out again. She knew where he was going without him even telling her. Hey Naruto, she said. Once you get done visiting him, come find me. I'll be in the town market, okay? He nodded and continued on his way. Sakura gave him a squeeze on the arm and left him. Naruto kept walking, letting his feet guide him. His mind traveled to the boy they trained with. What right did he have to replace Sasuke? He was terrible. Sasuke was 100 times better. He and Sakura hadn't even been going all that hard, but almost everything they threw at him found its mark. Did Kakashi really think they could go on a mission with him? He reminded him of himself, his old pathetic self who hadn't been able to protect Sasuke. It made him so angry. He looked around and realized he was standing at Sasuke's headstone. Hey man, he said, squatting down and brushing off the few leaves that covered it. Sorry I'm late, I had to train with Kakashi-sensei and Sakura. You always talk to yourself? Asked a voice behind him. He turned. What are you doing here? Naruto asked the visitor. It was none other than Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru shrugged. Come to pay my respects, responded Shikamaru. My team's been gone for a while and I thought I'd come say hey. He walked up and stood next to Naruto who had stood up by this point. How long have you been here? Naruto shrugged. Not long, he said, but I can't stay long either. I have to meet Sakura, Shikamaru nodded. Well it was great seeing you again Naruto, Shikamaru said. Naruto nodded and turned to leave. He tucked his hands in his pockets and hunched his shoulders. After walking for a good 10 minutes, he's the village market. Was a wide area in the middle of town full of stall vendors and street shops. Naruto scanned the area for Sakura's distinct pink hair. He found her standing at one of the stalls, next to a girl with blonde hair. Ino. Naruto turned to walk away, but Sakura must have turned around because she called out to him. Naruto, there you are, she called when he turned to see her racing towards him. Ino held back her mouth a firm line. Naruto knew what was going on. In the past 4 months he'd been back. Ino had tried extremely hard not to listen to the rumors that said Naruto had let Sasuke die. She tried so hard not to blame him. She slowly walked over to Sakura and Naruto. Hey Sakura, I'll see you later okay? She said, and without looking at him she added nice seeing you Naruto. And like that she was gone. Sakura let out a small sigh as she wrapped her arms around Naruto's. She did it quite often now, neither really knew why, but it was comfortable. Sakura figured she did it to protect Naruto, give him something else to focus on than the harsh words and cruel whispers that always surrounded him every time he went out. They walked through the market for a while, Sakura stopping occasionally to look at something at a stall or admire an item at a street shop. Naruto never said anything, he just walked with her, stood by her, and watched over her. A silent escort. As the night wound down Naruto decided it was probably time he got her home. She agreed and together they walked to her house. It was a good 30-minute walk. As they walked Sakura couldn't help but look up at Naruto's calm stoic face. He was actually quite handsome, and Sakura knew that if she hadn't been so obsessed over Sasuke when he was alive, she probably would have been quite attracted to Naruto while they were in the academy. Though part of her was glad she wasn't back then, because she knew if she had had a silly schoolgirl with a crush like she had been with Sasuke, she wouldn't have been able to put her ridiculous behavior aside and help him like she was now. Smiling to herself, she looked back down at the ground, slightly tightening her grip. Naruto glanced at her from the corner of his eye before turning his gaze back forwards. In time they reached her house. Naruto walked her up the stairs and stood at the doorway as she reached for the doorknob. But just before she could grab it, the door opened and none other than Takashi Haruno stood there waiting. Naruto went a couple of steps down, not wanting to get into a confrontation with him. Since his last one, he'd been able to avoid the man, but now they were standing face to face. "Naruto," he said. All Naruto could do was just blink. The man had never used his name, no one really did. Takashi looked at the sky. "It's kinda cold tonight, care for a cup of tea before you head home?" Naruto and Sakura both looked at me. Haruno like he'd gone crazy. "Come on in," the man said. He disappeared inside the house. Naruto and Sakura shared a confused look but went inside anyway. They found Takashi and Aki in the kitchen talking in low whispers, however as soon as they saw the mentor, the husband and wife fell silent. Takashi turned to the stove where he was heating up water, while Aki turned to Naruto. "Why don't you come sit down with Naruto?" she asked with a kind smile on her face. Naruto let her lead him to the couch in the living room, while Sakura stayed in the kitchen with her dad. "Okay daddy," she said. "What's going on?" Takashi looked confused. "What do you mean Sakura?" he asked in return. "The last time you saw Naruto you punched him in the face," she said with her hands on her hips. "Now you're inviting him in for tea." "Sakura," her dad said, not looking up. "You don't know this, but I've been watching him for a while. I hurt him and I feel terrible for it. I'm trying to make amends for what I did." Sakura was silent for a long time. "Why you promise daddy?" she asked, "because Naruto doesn't need people messing with him right now, he's bad enough as it is." "I promise Sakura," he replied, a bit taken aback at how protective his daughter was of the boy. Sakura seemed to accept that and moved to help him finish with the tea. Once they had 4 steaming cups of tea, they left the kitchen and went into the living room where Sakura found a very uncomfortable Naruto sitting on the couch playing with the hem of his t-shirt, a nervous habit of his. She handed him his tea and sat down close next to him, their hips almost touching. "So Naruto, I meant to ask you, why do you wear those bandages?" asked Takashi, genuinely curious. All the Haruno saw the boy stiffen. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Naruto shook his head. "It's alright," he said, but didn't provide an answer. The 4 drank their tea in relative silence. Naruto would shift every now and then, trying his best not to be rude, but he couldn't help but feel like he was being examined by Sakura's father. He would take nervous glances at Sakura, but she would just smile at him. After they finished their tea, Naruto stood up to take his leave. Quietly thanking them for the tea, he made his way to the door, stepping into his sandals. Sakura walked with him, and as he opened the door she put a hand on his shoulder to get his attention. He turned to look at her. She was smiling, a small smile, but a genuine smile. Then she stood on her toes and gave him a small kiss on the cheek. The small smile ghosted his own mouth and she turned and left the house. Naruto leaned against the railing of the bridge, his arms and ankles crossed. Sakura was next to him sitting on the railing looking at the water. Their newest member Haru was across from them, cross-legged on the bridge. "Is Kakashi-sensei always this late?" he asked. "Yeah, pretty much," said Sakura, not looking from the water. Naruto nodded in agreement, not looking at him. Haru let out a sigh looking back down at his lap. He'd been trying all morning to connect with his team. The beating he'd taken the day before showed just how far behind he really was. They had worked completely together, all without saying a single word to one another. He sighed again. Naruto was watching Haru from under his bangs. He watched as he took out a kunai and a whetstone and started to sharpen it. He snatched his hand back and stuck his thumb in his mouth. He'd cut himself. The boy was terrible. When he had first arrived today, Naruto had had every intention of telling him he wasn't wanted and to go away. But something had held him back. He had been the same way once. Flashback. "But there are 3 of us, that's what you said," yelled Naruto from where he was tied to a post. "We're all on this squad and we're all in it together," said Sasuke, his look of defiance ever present. Then flashback. A small smile played on his lips. "Dead for half a year," thought Naruto, "and still showing me up." Naruto had been tied to a post and his team had been told not to feed him. Yet Sasuke knew they would need to work as a team, and if Naruto was hungry it would hurt the team. The same was true here. Haru was weak and behind, which hurt the team. He had to do something. He straightened and walked over to the boy and knelt down in front of him. Haru looked at him curiously and Naruto picked up his abandoned kunai and whetstone. "Here," he said, "when you're sharpening a kunai, hold the whetstone like this." He showed him the proper grip. "That way you don't have to worry about cutting yourself." Haru stared at him. "Don't look at me, try it." Haru took the kunai and whetstone from Naruto and gripped it that he had shown him and started to sharpen the blade. He smiled as he continued. Sakura couldn't help but smile as she watched over her shoulder. Naruto was opening up, it was so nice to see him open up to someone besides her. Last night she'd laid on her bed for hours thinking about the small kiss she had given him. It had taken a lot of courage on her part, but that small gesture of the caring she had for him had seemed to help him a little bit. This morning when they had met at the bridge, he had given her a small smile. She was brought out by Kakashi walking on the bridge. "Hey," he said. Sakura let out a sigh. "You're late again, Kakashi-sensei," she said. "Sorry about that, a black cat crossed my path so I had to take the long way," he said. Sakura shook her head. Did he even realize he used the same 4 excuses over and over? "I'm sure you did," she said, not feeling like arguing and ruining her good mood. "Well, let's get going," said Kakashi, turning towards the Hokage tower. Haru put his kunai and whetstone away and made to get up. He saw a hand palm up being held out to him. He followed the arm and saw Naruto looking down at him. With a small grin, Haru took his hand and let him pull him to his feet. Sakura had to smile again. Naruto was getting there, but it wasn't there yet. But it's a long road to a healed heart and Sakura would be there for him every step of the way. Naruto let out a long sigh as he sat on one of the 3 pillars in training field 7. They'd been here for 3 hours waiting for Kakashi. This was getting a little ridiculous. Naruto had even gone to Sasuke's grave early so he would be on time. It was supposed to be really important and Kakashi was late again. Naruto put his elbows on his knees and his chin on top of his interlaced fingers. His gaze fell on Haru where he laid on the ground a few paces away. He had his fingers interlaced behind his head and his legs crossed at the ankles. They'd come a long way in the month they'd been together. Naruto and Sakura had been trying to integrate Haru into the team. Flashback. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 walked next to the large caravan they had been charged to protect. Naruto and Haru on one side, Sakura and Kakashi on the other. They were in charge of escorting it to the capital from the land of tea. The caravans had been being attacked by bandits lately and they were in need of escorts. Naruto walked with his hand in his pocket staring at the ground. He'd come a long way since watching Sasuke die. He was able to interact with his team, he even smiled from time to time now. But he still visited Sasuke every day. He didn't think a day would go by for the rest of life that he wouldn't. He just couldn't let his teammate go. Sasuke had always been there, even in their academy days. Naruto was always striving to surpass Sasuke. Then when they were put on the same team, Naruto was both angry and relieved. Angry because it would give Sasuke even more chances to show him up, but he was relieved as well because he had a strongest person in their age to measure himself against. Now he had no one. He'd been using Kakashi, but it was hard to see your own growth when going up against a Jounin as a genin. The gap was just too large. Naruto was brought out of his brooding when he caught a glimmer to his left. In an instant a kunai was in his hand. He deflected the knives that were thrown at him. Sounds of metal striking metal on the other side of the caravan told him that Kakashi had run into a similar problem. Naruto watched as 3 bandits stepped out of the shadows of the trees, katana in hand. Naruto glanced at Haru and saw he also had a kunai in his hand. His hand was trembling. "Haru," he said, causing the boy to look at him. "We can do this together, just stay with me and watch each other's back, got it?" Haru gave him a quick nod and looked back at the enemy. Naruto switched his one-eyed gaze back at their attackers. In a flash he threw the kunai at the men. It found a home on one of their shoulders. Then Naruto ran at him in a low stance, Haru hot on his heels. Naruto hit a baseball slide and slid through the man's legs before leaping to his feet and racing at the man behind him. He heard a gurgle and knew Haru had done his job. Naruto pulled the 2 kunai off his hips and ran straight at the second man. He blocked the katana strike with the kunai in his right hand and turning his back on the man he plunged the kunai in his left hand into the man's left side. The man's eyes bulged as Naruto turned to face him, yanking the kunai out and dragging the kunai that hand blocked the katana across both the man's jugular veins. He fell to the ground, bubbles of blood bursting from the slash in his throat as he struggled for breath. It would end soon. If he didn't bleed out from the wound across his neck, he would die drowning in his own blood as it slowly filled his punctured lung. Naruto turned to look at the last man and saw Haru had already engaged him. He was holding his own, but Haru's strength was not close combat. Naruto ran at them throwing a kunai, which the man only avoided because he leapt out of the way of Haru's attack, otherwise it would have sunk into the side of his head. Naruto continued to run at the man as he turned his back on him. It was clear he was completely unaware of Naruto's presence. Naruto closed the gap swiftly and buried the blade into the man's back, severing his spine. Haru took advantage of the man's surprise and plunged his own kunai in their opponent's heart. Naruto pushed the man to the ground, pulling his blade free. He turned to Haru and gave him a small nod of approval and turned back to the caravan, only stopping to wipe his blade clean on one of the enemy's shirts. Then flashback, that had been one of their first missions together, and their team's teamwork had been getting better and better with every mission. After their last mission yesterday, which had been a simple delivery run to a neighboring village that had taken a grand total of 6 hours, Kakashi told them to meet at Training Field 7. And now he was late. Naruto let out another sigh, causing Sakura to look up at him from where she was sitting right below him reading a scroll that she had gotten from Kurenai. "What's wrong with Naruto?" she asked with a curious look on her face. "You've been sighing an awful lot." "It's Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto. "I just wish he could be on time for once." Sakura nodded her head in agreement. "Why do you think he's late all the time anyway?" asked Haru from his spot in the middle of the field. "Who knows," said Naruto. "He's done it since we've known him, and he's not showing any signs of stopping. Guess we'll just have to deal with it." As if on cue, Kakashi casually walked into the field waving and greeting. "You're late," they all chorused, not loudly, Naruto merely mumbling. Kakashi let out a small laugh, nervously rubbing the back of his head. After regaining his composure, Kakashi addressed them as a team. "I've actually called you all to discuss an important matter. The Chunin exams are approaching, and I've nominated the three of you." Three genin stared at him for a minute. "Wait, what kind of exam?" asked Haru, knowing if he had to fight, he would be hard-pressed to win. "I'm not allowed to disclose the details," said Kakashi, then he took out 3 sheets of paper and handed them to his students. "These are the applications, file them out, and meet at the academy tomorrow if you wish to participate." With that he left the 3 young ninja. Naruto stared at the paper for a minute before jumping to the ground. He was entering, it would be a good opportunity for him to test his skills. He walked out of the clearing heading for the main square of the village, his teammate flanking him. As they walked they stumbled across a male-female pair of ninja they didn't recognize. The male was in a black jumpsuit wearing a ridiculous cat-eared hood, makeup, and had something wrapped in bandages on his back. The female wore a simple dress with a large battle fan strapped to her back. The male had a child by the collar holding the boy off the ground. Naruto recognized the boy, Konohamaru. The look on the mystery ninja's face did spell good news for Konohamaru. Naruto decided it would be best to intervene. "Put him down," he said, not drawing his hands out of his pockets. "What?" said the ninja. "You got a problem too, punk?" "I do," said Naruto. "I have a problem with you harassing the people of my village." He glanced at the boy's forehead and ninja. "You are clearly here to take part in the up-and-coming Chunin exams. It would be a shame if I had to have to be expelled from the village for disturbing the peace," Tenkuro said in a dark voice from somewhere to Naruto's right. "Put him down, you're embarrassing yourself and our village." A young man stood on the underside of a tree branch, his arms crossed and a large gourd on his back. The boy in black seemed to get scared suddenly and dropped Konohamaru. "Sure, Gaara," he stuttered. The boy Gaara turned to Naruto. "I apologize for his behavior," he said in a monotone voice. Naruto shook his head. "It's alright, no harm was done." Having said that, Naruto, Sakura, Haru, and Konohamaru all left the sand ninja to themselves. As they walked, Naruto thought about the boy named Gaara. There was something about him, something strangely familiar. Deciding that he was reading too much into it, Naruto decided to just banish the thought. He had an exam to focus on, and he couldn't afford distractions right now. Naruto stood outside the academy with his hands in his pockets. He had arrived 30 minutes early to ensure he wouldn't miss his chance. After waiting about 10 minutes, the rest of his team showed up. They handed the applications to the 2 Chunin sitting at a booth outside. "Head upstairs, 3rd floor, room 305, one of them said. Naruto nodded, and then with his team flanking him on either side, he entered the academy. He walked up the stairs and to the 3rd floor where he found and entered room 305. The room was packed and in the front stood the rest of the rookie 9. Naruto walked over and stood next to them, his hands still deep in his pockets. "Hey Naruto," said Choji as he approached. Naruto inclined his head in greeting and stared out amongst the rest of the ninja. There were genin from all over the land, grass, sand, rain. There were even 3 ninjas with music notes on their headbands. Naruto locked eyes with one of them, a man who had most of his face covered in bandages. They stared at each other for a minute. Sakura glanced nervously at Naruto and then looked at Haru, who was watching Naruto. Then surprisingly, the man with the music note on his forehead broke eye contact. A ghost of a smile crossed Naruto's face as he glanced at the rest of the rookies. Some of them were looking at him with stunned looks. Naruto gave them questioning looks before turning to look at the examiner that just entered the room. "Alright you scum," said Ibiki. "Everyone takes a number from the box the examiner is passing around, then takes your assigned seating." Naruto drew number 19D. He walked up to row 19 and sat in the 4th seat. To his left was a grass ninja and to his right was Hinata. They passed out the tests. "You have 1 hour," said the examiner. "No cheating. If you are caught 3 times your entire team will fail. Begin." Naruto flipped over his paper and saw a 9-question test. The 10th question will be given with 10 minutes left. Naruto stared at it for a minute. Great, all the skills I've picked up and I still suck at taking tests, he thought. He sat in his chair trying to think of a way to figure this out. There was no way he could answer any of the questions, they were just way over his head. He was gonna have to cheat, but how? Flashback, Kakashi and Zabuza stood on the water, eyeing each other. Both men started flashing through hand signs, and Kakashi copied Zabuza flawlessly. They both used the water style, throwing Naruto around. Then Zabuza started making random movements, and Kakashi moved flawlessly with him, mimicking every movement the Demon of the Mist made. Then flashback, then months ago Naruto would have slapped himself in the forehead. Now he was more reserved. He started subtly scanning the room for potential candidates. Through a sheer stroke of luck, the man right in front of him was riding like a man possessed. Pretending to scratch the right side of his face, Naruto slightly pulled down the bandage over his right eye. He had been training for the last 6 months with Kakashi and using Sharingan. It was time to put that training to at least some use. For the first time since the death of Sasuke, the right eye of Naruto Uzumaki opened. Sakura scanned the test and glanced at Naruto, who was staring blankly at his test. This was bad, though his battle prowess and skills had increased by leaps and bounds since Sasuke's death. But his intellectual and deductive reasoning skills hadn't improved at all. She wasn't going to have a problem, and Haru should be okay. Though he wasn't a very good fighter, Haru was actually quite smart. Sakura watched Naruto be still for a long time before finally moving. He scratched the bandaged side of his face, then started writing. Her fears laid to rest for the time being, Sakura turned to her own test. I hit a gold mine with this guy, thought Naruto as he copied the answer for the 5th question. In a matter of 20 minutes Naruto had the entire test filled out and finished. They had 5 minutes until the 10th question was released. Naruto pulled the bandage back over the Sharingan to conserve his chakra and sat back in his seat with his arms crossed. People around him were starting to finish. As he glanced around, he realized that there was a significantly fewer number of people. He'd been so focused on copying the man's movements he hadn't noticed people being removed. Alright, listen up, said the proctor. It's time for the 10th question. Naruto looked up at the proctor, trying to read him. He hadn't been able to for the entire exam. It was starting to wear on his nerves. But before we reveal the 10th question, there are a few rules. Rule number 1, each of you will have the choice whether or not to take the final question. There was a collective gasp from the students. However, should you choose not to take it, you will get a 0 on the test and automatically fail, and in extension, your entire team will. Rule 2. If you do decide to take the final question and do not answer correctly, you will be barred from taking the Chunin exams ever again. Gasp wasn't the correct word this time. It was more like a scream of terror. Naruto watched as student after student raised their hands, backing out. Naruto glanced at Haru, who was shaking, nervous as hell. Naruto closed his eyes. Go ahead, Haru, he thought. Raise your hand. Haru's hand twitched, but he kept his arm down. Alright then, here we go. The proctor glanced over the class one more time. Alright then, if that's everyone, I only have one thing left to say. He paused as he glanced around. Naruto's right hand twitched, ready to pull the bandage from his eye. Congratulations on passing the first exam. Naruto almost fell out of his chair. The guy next to him actually did. Hold on, yelled Sakura, jumping to her feet. What do you mean? Where's the 10th question? There is no 10th question, not a written one at least, he smiled. In fact, your answer to stay was the correct answer. Naruto crossed his arms and slumped in his seat. Unbelievable, he said, smirking and shaking his head. Then what was the point of the other 9 questions? Demanded a blonde-haired girl wearing a sand headband around her neck. Are they completely pointless? Not all, said Ibiki. In truth, they served a very important task. They were to test your ability to gather intel under the most dire of circumstances. Naruto could only shake his head. As I'm sure you realize, the questions were far too advanced for any genin to answer. The test was designed to encourage cheating. In fact, it practically demanded it. However, you had to have someone to copy off of. So I had 2 chunin who already knew the answers sit in with you. Naruto watched as the boy he'd been copying raised his hand. Okay, but what was the point of the 10th question? Asked the blonde girl. The 10th question was the whole point of the exam. You had 2 choices, neither one very pleasant. You could either choose not to take it and the whole team would fail, or you could take it at the risk of losing your chance to ever be chunin. It was a no-win situation. But with your choices to take it, you have shown your ability to put the mission before yourself. The first exam is over. See through deception, said Naruto, shaking his head. Then the widow to his left shattered. A sort of ball flew in through the window. 2 kunai with ropes tied to them embedded themselves in the ceiling. A woman with purple hair and a tan coat stood in front of the newly erected curtain. Alright, boys and girls, are you ready for the second test? She yelled. Good. Then follow me. No one moved. Okay, stuttered Naruto with a raised eyebrow. You're early, Ibiki's voice came from behind the curtain again. She faltered. Then Ibiki stepped around the curtain and the two shared words in whispers that Naruto didn't catch. "Alright, meet me tomorrow at the 44th Battle Training Zone at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning," the woman said, dismissed. Naruto stood up from his seat and exited the room, his hands tucked in his pockets. He walked down to the ground floor and exited the building, headed for home. His teammate soon joined him. "Hey Naruto," said Haru walking up on his right, "how many questions did you answer?" "I could only get 5. Naruto smiled. "I got them all," said Naruto. Sakura gave him a weird look before a look of understanding crossed her face. Gave her a faint smile before looking forward again and continuing on his journey home. "I'll see you guys tomorrow," said Haru and leapt off. "Would you like me to walk you home?" asked Naruto looking back at Sakura. Sakura shook her head. "Actually, I thought I'd visit with you for a while. She said my parents are out of the village on business and won't be returning for a week." Naruto nodded his head and turned toward his house. They reached his house in a short time and soon found themselves sitting on his couch. Though he'd intended to stay up and talk with Sakura for a while, Naruto found himself growing very drowsy very quickly. In a matter of minutes his head was cradled in Sakura's lap and he was fast asleep. The next morning Naruto woke up on his couch, a petite form curled against him. He lifted himself up a bit and looked around, his clock read 6 o'clock. They had an hour and a half to get to the 44th Battle Training Ground. He gently shook Sakura awake and watched as her beautiful green eyes fluttered open. "Sakura, we gotta get up," he said. She stretched her whole body against him. He felt his face heat up slightly. After she got off the couch, Naruto sat up and put his face in his hands, rubbing it vigorously trying to wake up. Then he stood up and followed her out of the house. They ran to the training ground and made it with a half hour to spare. Haru was already there waiting for them. "About time you two decide to show up," he said, giving them a smirk. "Yeah, sorry about that," said Sakura, rubbing the back of her head. "Kinda overslept." Haru gave them a knowing look before turning to face the forest. "So this is where we're taking the next exam, eh?" he said looking up at the looming trees. "Should be pretty interesting." Naruto followed his gaze into the trees, they looked ominous, and he couldn't help but agree, it did look like it was going to be interesting. Movement to his right caught his attention, and he turned to see Shikamaru and his team approaching them, followed by the other 3 rookies. Soon the rookie 9 were standing together in a small mob and at their head stood Naruto. They were outcasts here, having only been genin for a short time, even though most of the Leaf genin looked at them with partial disgust. The only ones who weren't were 3 in the far back. 2 boys and a girl. Team Guy, led by the child prodigy Niji Hyuga. Naruto turned to face his own team and the rest of the 9, forming a small circle. "So it looks like we're all still in it," said Kiba, glancing around. "Yup," said Choji, smiling. "What do you suppose the next task will be?" asked Hinata's shy voice. None of the others got a chance to answer because at that very moment the second exam proctor showed up. "Alright you maggots." She yelled, "It's time for the second exam to begin. Each team will receive either a heaven scroll or an earth scroll. The objective is to enter the training ground and make your way to the tower located in the middle. However, before you can enter the tower you must first obtain both scrolls. You have 5 days." Naruto's eyebrow raised a bit. "Before we can proceed each team must enter the booth, confirm you are allowed to partake in the exam, and receive your scroll." Naruto turned to his team and indicated for them to follow. Then as a team they walked into the booth. "Names," said the Chunin sitting behind the table. "Sakura Haruno," said Sakura. The Chunin scanned the lost and found her name, he checked her off. "Arumuri," said Haru. The Chunin checked his name off. "Naruto Uzumaki," said Naruto. The Chunin did a double take, eyeing Naruto up, then he checked his name off. Naruto picked up the heaven scroll that was set in front of him and drew his number out of the box, and they drew gate 13. They exited the booth and walked away from the rest of the candidates. Once at their gate, the 3 started to discuss strategy. Naruto said to Sakura, who should lead the team. Naruto was quiet for a bit. "You should say Sakura, you are the smartest one out of the group," said Naruto. "Haru, no offense, but you've got a bit of a confidence problem, and me, well, I already let one teammate die, I won't let you die because of me." Sakura frowned and Haru both believed Naruto was the best for this, but it seemed that he didn't trust himself with the well-being of his teammates. Yes, she was smart, but she wasn't a leader, she didn't have the natural ability, it wasn't in her makeup. Naruto, however, was. He knew how to inspire people, it came as natural as breathing to him, but it seemed that he had yet to overcome his fear of being responsible for another teammate's death, so she reluctantly agreed to lead them. But she knew that if any fighting started Naruto would take over, he wouldn't even realize it, but he would, and she'd follow his every order. Naruto nodded at her and turned around to face the gate. She stared at his back, his hand tucked in his pockets, but he still stood as straight up as ever, the pride he had in himself hadn't changed. For a second she remembered Sasuke and the way he carried himself. They had been more alike than they knew, but Sakura had always been looking at them from the outside, so it was easy for her to see. She was sure Kakashi saw it too. "Alright, get ready," said the Chunin at the gate. Naruto stepped up to the gate, Sakura and Haru stepped up to flank him. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the Chunin counted down go. The gate swung open, and the three raced in. Naruto took the lead and leapt into the trees, the others hot on his heels. They raced through the trees for an hour before coming to a stop in a small clearing. "Alright, how are we gonna go about finding an Earth Scroll?" asked Haru. "We can't split up, but we'll lose time if we just wander around aimlessly," said Sakura. "So for now we continue to head for the tower." Naruto and Haru nodded and leapt off to follow their leader, however they hadn't gone 300 yards when Naruto put on a burst of speed and tackled Sakura out of the sky. A kunai flew overhead and Haru caught a branch and flipped up on top of it, drawing his own kunai. Naruto landed with Sakura in his arms, holding her bridal style. "Thanks Naruto," she said as he put her down. He nodded and looked off into the direction the kunai had come from. 3 ninja from the grass village stood in a tree 60 feet away, squaring off against Haru. Haru leapt into the air and threw his blade at the 3 scattered. Naruto and Sakura used the distraction to leap back into the fight. Naruto slipped of his pack and flipped it open. He pulled out a crescent-bladed-like object and threw it to Haru, who caught it and landed on a nearby branch blocking a shuriken with the blade. Then he spun the blade once, 3 identical blades sprang forth. Haru was holding the weapon of Sasuke Uchiha, the Demon Wind Shuriken. The attacking ninja all threw multiple shuriken and kunai at Haru, who started spinning the shuriken. The incoming blades were deflected. Then Haru threw the spin blade at the 3 ninja. They all leapt out of the way. Haru leapt in pursuit of one. Sakura stopped the ninja pursuing Haru with a head kick to the head. Naruto jumped after the third. Haru landed in front of the ninja. He pursued another kunai in his hand. The grass ninja drew his sword and attacked Haru. Haru sidestepped the attack, plunged the kunai through his hand, pinning him to the tree. Then Haru stuck his hand out and caught the demon wind on its return path. Continuing its rotation, he passed the blades through his neck, severing his head from his shoulders. Sakura landed in a crouch and launched herself at the grass ninja. She punched him in the face and followed up with a knee to his stomach. Then she drew a kunai and he drew his sword. She attacked him with a stab which he dodged and then trapped her arm between his body and his arm. He tried to cut off her head, but she dropped down and grabbed his leg. She pulled it out from under him. He lost his balance and fell from the tree. Sakura dove after him, her blade held in a reverse grip. They both crashed to the ground, her blade pierced his chest and heart. Naruto and his opponent face each other, neither moving nor breathing. The grass ninja twitched. Naruto started his hand signs. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. He breathed the huge flame at the grass ninja, who dropped off the tree branch and fell to the ground. Naruto dropped down after him, drawing his 2 kunai off his hips, holding them in reverse grips. They landed on the ground and the grass ninja ran at Naruto. He delivered an overhead slash intent on cleaving Naruto in 2. Naruto blocked the blade with his kunai. Then he shoved the ninja away and took up the ground. He delivered stabs through each of the man's biceps, then plunged the blades into his thighs. The man screamed in pain. Naruto ripped one blade out and drove for the man's chin. The enemy ninja caught Naruto's wrist and tried to hold off his attack. Naruto put the palm of his other hand on the end of the kunai and pushed up. The two struggled against one another, but the man's wounded arms quickly gave out. Naruto drove the kunai through the man's bottom jaw and into the roof of his mouth, and then the blade pierced his brain. The man suffered the most unbearable pain known to possible, then he died. Naruto wrenched the blade free and kicked the corpse over. He turned to look at his other teammates. They were both fine. Haru had the demon wind in his hand and was in the process of wiping it clean. The other 2 enemies were dead. Haru collapsed the demon wind and tried to hand it back to Naruto. Naruto shook his head. "Keep it," he said, "you seem to have a natural talent for it. I can't think of a better person to carry Sasuke's shuriken." Haru and Sakura shared a look of amazement. Naruto was parting with something of Sasuke's. Not many people knew it, but Naruto had the headband he'd gotten from Iruka in a drawer at home. Since his death, Naruto had been wearing Sasuke's headband as a tribute to his dead friend. Now he was giving Haru the demon wind, the weapon Sasuke had used to fight the rogue ninja. Zabuza. "Come on," he said, "let's search for the scroll." They searched for the bodies for a couple minutes before Haru found it on the man he'd killed. "It's a heaven scroll," he said. He tossed it into the bushes. Naruto and Sakura converged on him. "It's getting late," said Sakura. "Let's find somewhere to camp for the night." The other 2 nodded and they began to search. After looking for half an hour, they found a deep cave that had a natural bend in it, which meant they could make a fire. Hardened a bit, they headed inside and started to erect a camp. Sakura set up a tent while Haru and Naruto collected firewood. In no time at all they had a small fire going and were eating some rations that Haru had had. Naruto volunteered for the first watch and while the others slept he sat at the mouth of the cave. His thoughts, as they always did, drifted to the time he'd spent with Sasuke. The tree climbing, their fight with Zabuza, the demon brothers, everything. It had been annoying to see Sasuke outclass him at every turn, but at the same time it had inspired him to try even harder. The bond of friendship and brotherhood that had been forming between them was like something he'd never felt before. But then his thoughts drifted to Haru, they were growing closer, he'd meant what he'd said about the demon wind. He'd wanted Haru to keep it. Haru would never replace Sasuke. Haru knew this, Naruto knew it, Sakura knew it. But Haru had earned his own spot on Team 7, they were now a 4-man squad. The spirit of Sasuke as the guardian angel, always looking over them and guiding, showing Naruto the path to the title of Hokage, just like he'd said. It was that line of thinking that caused Naruto to remember his other startling discovery. Flashback, "I'm on Naruto," said Kakashi, "just relax and watch my hands." Naruto took in a deep breath and opened his right eye watching Kakashi. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Kakashi let the huge ball of fire fly into the air. "Now follow me this time," he said. Naruto cleared his mind and let his instincts take over just like Kakashi had instructed. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. They said as one. Naruto was as big as Kakashi, causing the Jounin to gasp. "Amazing," he said. "What?" asked Naruto. It would seem that not only did Sasuke give you Sharingan, but the Uchiha has unparalleled control of fire jutsu as well. The Nine Tails seems to have adapted your body to use Sasuke's DNA. Naruto let out a gasp. "What does that mean?" he asked suddenly, slightly afraid. "Don't worry, you're still you," said Kakashi, "you just have a little bit of Uchiha blood in you know." Then flashback, since then Naruto had been improving on his fire jutsu and he was getting quite good at it. He was working on a few others that he had yet to perfect. All in all his skill in ninjutsu was improving, and that too very good to jutsu, and you had yourself a pretty good ninja. He wanted to learn Jinjutsu, and Kakashi said he would be able to learn a little as he got better with Sharingan, but he wasn't a Jinjutsu type, so the Jinjutsu he could learn would be very limited. A few hours later Haru relieved Naruto so he could get some sleep as well. Naruto walked deeper into the cave and entered the tent to find Sakura sleeping comfortably in her bedroll. Naruto slipped into his, which was to her right, and laid on his back with his hands crossed under his head. Sakura rolled over and curled up against him, resting her head on his chest. Naruto, focusing on her presence, slowly drifted off. When he awoke again, Sakura's warm body was gone. He sat up and looked around the tent. Sakura was gone, but Haru was there, sleeping with his back to Naruto. Naruto brushed the top of his bedroll off his legs and left the tent. Once outside he stretched and made his way to the tent entrance. Sakura was sitting there watching and she turned to look at him as he approached. "What time is it?" he asked her. "Almost dawn," she replied, "we should probably get moving." Naruto nodded and went back into the tent where he woke up Haru and together they collapsed the tent and put it back in Sakura's pack. Naruto carried her pack out to her as he threw his own across his back. Haru's pack seemed to have vanished. "Haru, where's your pack?" asked Naruto. "Don't have it anymore," answered Haru. "I didn't have anything else in it, so I made it into this." He held up a sort of carrier and Naruto saw that the demon wind was in it, the ring sticking out the top for quick access. "Ah, I see," said Naruto, impressed. "Well, we better get moving." They leapt into the trees. Little did they know that they were being followed. Osu, Kin, and Zaku watched their targets leap into the air and off into the trees. Lord Orochimaru had said to target them, to test their might. He had something planned for the village and waited to see how well the genin in the village were being trained. Kakashi's Team 7 had the most promising candidates in the year's batch of rookies, so they were the targets. They'd been watching them all night, trying to see if they could find a weakness to exploit, but so far they had found nothing. So they would trail them and wait for the right moment to strike. Naruto, Sakura, and Haru had been on the move all day and were nearing the tower. They were currently taking a break by a river. Naruto knelt on its bank, washing his face in the cool stream, when he felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He searched his surroundings for danger but couldn't find any. Thinking that maybe it was just fatigue, he decided to let it go for the time being. He returned to his teammates who were currently trying to devise a way to obtain an earth scroll. It was then that Naruto saw them, sitting in a tree 50 yards behind them, were they enemy ninja. Careful as to not give away that he was aware of their presence, he walked to his teammates and knelt down next to them. "We're being watched," he whispered. "Don't react, but there are 3 enemy ninjas 50 yards directly behind Haru." They continued to act as if he had said nothing, but when they were drawing a map of the surrounding area, they both drew check marks, indicating that they understood. The attack would have been fatal had the 3 not already been aware it was coming. The lead man, a man wrapped almost completely in bandages, landed where they were drawing their map. The three-leaf ninja dove towards the river and rolled to their feet, weapons in hand. Naruto had his two kunai, Haru wielded the demon wind, and Sakura had a kunai in her hand. "So," said the mummy man, "you were aware of our presence all this time?" "What if we were?" countered Haru. The mummy man was joined by two others, a man with spiky hair and a lean woman. All three wore headbands with musical notes on them. "I'm curious," said Mummy, "what kind of scroll do you carry?" "You see, we carry this earth scroll." He held up the earth scroll, their reactions gave them away. "Ah, so you need this earth scroll to go with the heaven scroll you carry. How about a deal, we both lay our scrolls on the ground and then we fight, whoever wins gets to take both scrolls with them." Naruto wanted to accept, an earth scroll had fallen right into their laps, but if the man was revealing what kind of scroll he had, it could only mean that he was confident in his and his teammates' chances of winning. But they really didn't have any choice. "I'll take your deal," said Naruto, and pulled the heaven scroll out of his pack. He set it on the ground next to the mummy man's scroll and leapt back to his team. "Okay, guys," he said, "any ideas?" "Yeah, I've got one," said Sakura, "but I'm going to need time, 2 or 3 minutes at least. In the world of a ninja, 2 minutes is a lifetime, 3, an eternity." Naruto nodded. "Alright Haru, and I will keep them busy," said Naruto. Haru nodded in agreement and started to spin the demon wind. Sakura leapt back a ways and started making hand signs. Naruto sheathed his two knives and started his hand signs. "Too late," yelled the spiky-haired man. He held up his hands and a wall of air rushed at Naruto. Naruto finished just in time. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. He launched a mass of flames at the wall of air. They clashed and the shock wave caused everyone to shield their faces, all but Sakura, who was too far back. When Naruto and his opponents recovered, they all noticed Haru was gone. Naruto feared the worst, however his fears were quickly put to rest when he saw a loud yell. He looked up and saw Haru spin his body over, using his own momentum to put even more force into the throw, just as Sasuke had while fighting Zabuza. The demon wind flew at the ninja with blinding speed, but the mummy man pulled up his sleeve and revealed a strange-looking gauntlet with holes in it. He blocked the large shuriken with it. Haru caught it as it flew back at him. He hit the ground and collapsed, blocking the strike the mummy had aimed at him. They stood still, eyeing each other down when Haru gasped and fell to one knee, blood running out of his left ear. Naruto was on the move, drawing his two kunai. He kicked the mummy man in the face, sending him flying backward, and then deflected two throwing needles that the girl had thrown. Haru was on his feet and ran over the spiky-haired guy, only to have a wall of air hit him in the face. Naruto turned to help him, but was cut off by the girl. The mummy soon got to his feet and was running towards him. "Come on Sakura," he thought. It was at that moment that the two attacking Naruto stopped altogether. The spiky-haired guy was still blasting Haru with a massive wall of air, pinning him to the ground. Naruto dodged around the girl, who now had her hands around her own throat, and ran up behind the guy. He slid under his arms and drove both kunai into his arms, at the elbows. He screamed in pain. Haru kicked him in the face and he crashed to the ground, unconscious. Naruto turned to look at Sakura, who was on her hands and knees, breathing very hard. So, that's what she was doing, he thought Genjutsu. He looked back at the mummy man and the girl was on the ground, she'd strangled herself to unconsciousness. The mummy man was on his knees gasping for air. He must have been able to hold out long enough for Sakura's to wear off. "You are indeed powerful, and we underestimated you," said the mummy man. "The earth scroll is yours, please let us go." Naruto picked up the two scrolls and turned towards his fallen foes. "Be gone," he said. "Thankfully, until we meet again." He stood up, carrying both of his teammates. Naruto quickly joined Haru at Sakura's side. "Sakura, that was amazing," he said. "I'm still trying to get the hang of it," she said. "It takes a lot of my chakra and I can't hold it for long." "It's okay," said Naruto. "You held it long enough for what we needed. Look." He held out the two scrolls. "We've got both scrolls, let's rest here tonight and head for the tower in the morning." No one disagreed. Naruto, Sakura, and Haru gazed up at the tower as they walked inside. It wasn't as large as Naruto had expected, it was a decent size. They stepped into the room labeled 13 and closed the door behind them. It had taken most of the day to reach the tower, so there were still 3 nights and 2 days until the test ended. They would be here for a while. They started searching the room when Sakura found a large poster on the wall. After reading it, she turned to her two teammates. "I think we have to open the scrolls now," she said. The other two looked at her curiously for a second before following her orders. Haru and Naruto each took a scroll and opened it. They started to smoke, so the two threw them away, drawing their weapons. When the smoke cleared, Iruka-sensei stood in front of them. "Congratulations on passing the second exam," he said. "Iruka-sensei?" asked Naruto. "That's right," said his old sensei. "Why are you here?" asked Sakura. Well, I'm here to explain the exam, he said. And what it means to be chunin. You see, a chunin is a leader, the exam demanded teamwork, and it was up to the leader to get their team to work together as a cohesive unit. Secondly, it pitted you against the other, the team had to decide who to approach each obstacle. One through teamwork could this exam be completed. After his explanation of the exam, Haruka asked them about the challenges they had faced in the forest, before finally wishing them good luck on the next exam. The next 2 days passed slowly, but it gave them time to replenish what chakra they had used in the forest. After the time limit was up, the door in the back of the room opened. This led into a hallway where the rest of the qualifying team were. They all followed the hall into a huge room. On an elevated platform stood each sensei of the remaining teams, the second exam proctor, and the third Hokage. Alright, each team lined up in a single file, said the exam proctor. After lining up, the Hokage spoke. First off, I'd like to congratulate each and every one of you on reaching the third exam, he said. As he spoke, Naruto glanced around, Shikamaru and his teammate Kiba and the others too. The team from the Sand Village and the Sound team that had fought Naruto and his team. And 2 other Leaf teams, one was Team Guy and the other had no one that Naruto recognized. Each person looked rather strange and a silver-haired man with glasses was in the front. Now, the Hokage, it's time to be interrupted by another Leaf ninja dropping from the roof. Lord Hokage, he said, as proctor for the third exam, I, Heiichiko, wish to address them. Very well, said the Hokage. Hei turned to them. Hello everyone, he said, before we can begin the third exam we have to have a set of preliminary bouts. What the hell for? Demanded Kiba. Frankly speaking, said the proctor, we didn't expect this many of you to make it, she must thin down your numbers. Before we do, however, are there any among you who wish to end it here? The man in glasses raised his hand. Alright, you got me, I'm out, he said. Kabuto Yakshi, said the second exam proctor. Very well, said Haiate, if that is it, then the prelims begin right now. A screen high in the wall began to randomly go through names. It ended on Haru and one of the Leaf ninja dressed in purple. The other went up to the catwalks on either end of the room, only Haru and his opponent remained. It was time for the third exams to begin. Thanks for watching my video and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description, see you next time, till then sayonara.